Hi, and welcome to the End Times Bible Study. My name is Lee, and I'm honored to have you joining me. For the Bible study, I am not qualified nor equipped to lead. I don't perceive myself to be a leader. I'm just like you. Absolutely nobody special. You don't need to remember my name. What you do need to remember is that God is the one who grants us discernment and understanding in things that matter. I was listening to a very intelligent man talking about the nature of jihad and his suppositions on why um, Muslims engage in jihad. And I was listening to this audio, and it was quite intriguing until the point he pointed out that Christianity made no sense whatsoever. It was just ridiculous that you have God and God's Son, and He came to Earth and died, and they're three, but they're one. And he said, they've been trying to figure out the Trinity for 2,000 years, and he just really couldn't make any sense of Christianity whatsoever. And it reminded me that the word of life is foolishness to those who are perishing, but it is the breath of life to those who are being saved. It is the way God has set it up, so that those who reject the truth find it foolish and laughable. In fact, the gospel is engineered so that it conveys as foolishness. Your sins will damn you to hell unless you confess and ask the son of a carpenter in Nazareth 2,000 years ago to live in your heart. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to mock at all, but I want to point out that the gospel is not a logical, rational thing, and yet so many people in the West are trying to engage society with a logical, sensible, rational gospel because that's how our Western society is geared. We want things to be rational, logical, and sensible, even though we live in a culture that is irrational and senseless. Any culture that doesn't know the difference between a boy and a girl is irrational and senseless. Any culture that can slaughter its own young for the sake of convenience and to accommodate those who are promiscuous and careless and reckless rather than letting them take responsibility for their own actions, that kind of culture, it's depraved, it's wicked. But that is unfortunately the culture we live in. And the point I'm making is that discernment, understanding, is withheld from the lost, but it is given to those who draw near to God. A good analogy is that God is like light, and those who come to Him, the light illuminates the world more clearly for them, and they discern things better. The further they move away from God, the more confusion enters their life, the more perplexing things seem, to the point where you're so far removed from the light that things like gender become confusing. Things like abortion don't seem wrong or bad. And that is the result of withdrawing from the light and the truth of God. So rather than really trying to engage and debate and bring out rational points that they will see and go, oh, that makes sense. No, they can't see because they are far removed from the light. And in fact, they at that point they hate the light. It hurts them. They scatter like cockroaches away from the light. We're seeing that in Canada. In the news today, Canada is a bill is going through that will make it illegal for Christians to have any form of public demonstration. It will be illegal because all that we represent is hate speech here in Canada. You know, um, morality, talking about sin, things like that. That's hate speech. I thought of a great meme for this. Have Granny Cedarberg smiling sweetly with her Bible clutched under her arm on the left side, And then under that, I'd write hate speech. And on the right side, have a jihadi terrorist. You know, he's got his knife or bomb or whatever. And under that, you can write victim. That is how the powers that be perceive Western society. This is their reality. And it can only be their reality because they exist in darkness. They have removed themselves so far from the light offends them, and that's why they're banning, they're prohibiting the display of anything Christian, because that light is menacing. They don't like it. So we are in Daniel chapter 3 tonight, and this is very, very intriguing. We have to pay careful attention because I believe it is a type. Nebuchadnezzar is a type of world leadership. And this chapter discusses something we're going to see again in Revelation, an analogy, an image of a beast. So we need to be careful and be humble as we approach the scriptures, mindful that God reveals truth. It's his very presence reveals the truth and gives us understanding. I want us all to have Daniel's humility and discernment that God is the giver of truth. We are just humans. We're nothing better than that. We're just humans. We are, like I was saying, that fella I heard on the radio was a very intelligent man, very articulate, certainly far more intelligent than me, yet utterly blinded to the truth. Now, that doesn't mean I can exalt myself and say, hey, I'm smarter than him. I'm not. But I'm closer to God, and more is illuminated to me by being near God. So my heart's cry to all of us would be to draw nearer and nearer to God, be embraced by the light, and you will be far less likely to be deceived. So we're reading in chapter 3 tonight. This is the golden image that Nebuchadnezzar set up. I'm going to be reading from verses 1 to 3. Nebuchadnezzar the king made an image of gold, the height of which was 60 cubits, and its width 6 cubits. He set it up on the plain of Dura in the province of Babylon. Then Nebuchadnezzar the king sent word to assemble the satraps, the prefects and the governors, the counselors, the treasurers, the judges, the magistrates, and all the rulers of the provinces to come to the dedication of the image that Nebuchadnezzar the king had set up. Then the satraps, prefects, governors, counselors, treasurers, judges, magistrates, and all the rulers of the provinces were assembled for the dedication of the image that Nebuchadnezzar the king had set up, and they stood before the image that Nebuchadnezzar had set up. So there's a couple of things to point out. First of all, this thing is 60 cubits tall, and a cubit is about 1.5 feet, give or take. There are varying ideas of exactly what a cubit is, but 1.5 feet to 2 feet is a rough estimate. So this thing is monstrous, absolutely monstrous. It towers over everyone. It towers over everything. It's just gigantic. And it's gold. Now, I imagine that Nebuchadnezzar had that dream that Daniel interpreted for him, and it was the March of Kingdoms beginning with Nebuchadnezzar's kingdom of gold. And rather than really holding on to what he had declared, Daniel's God is the God of gods, and there is none like him. Instead of really holding on to that and treasuring it within his heart, he lets that slip through his fingers and forgets about it. And that happens. In this world, we can let valuable, precious truth slip through our fingers and drift away. And, it doesn't go into our heart. It doesn't transform us. It just goes away. But what did Nebuchadnezzar hang on to from that dream? You, Nebuchadnezzar, are the head. You, Nebuchadnezzar, are the golden kingdom. He must have spent some time really considering his own greatness, his own excellency, to be the head of all the march of empires that would cross the pages of history. He is that head of gold. And in time, it comes to his mind that he should establish a large image, probably of himself, on the plains of Dura. It's solid gold. This kingdom was incredibly wealthy, unimaginably wealthy, that he could craft this in the first place. So the second thing that I wanted to point out is that Nebuchadnezzar was not content just to have this image. It wasn't enough just to set something up in remembrance of his own glory. He wanted more than that. He wanted worship. He wanted people to bow down and to give him worship. So he gathers everyone, the magistrates, prefects, rulers of the provinces. This is absolutely everyone of any renown whatsoever is summoned to the plains of Dura before Nebuchadnezzar's golden image. So this is a man who really doesn't understand the word humility. He feels very proud of himself, very big about himself, and he wants everyone else to know it. So tomorrow night, we're going to get into the actual worship of this image that he set up in the plains of Dura. And unfortunately, there's not much more I can drag out of these scriptures except that he just brought together all the people. So that's it for tonight. God bless you, and thank you so much for joining me.